Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new year and a new episode of the Hook Turn podcast with my very good friend Sanviv Ahmed. Happy New Year, and how have you found the first few days of 2026?
It's been good, and I'm glad that in today's episode we get to talk about some new cars that have either been unveiled or unveiled for the Australian market. Both are EVs, but it is interesting to see, even though they're from completely different brands, some of the surprising similarities between both of
Yeah,
these cars.
definitely. And I think when we cover these two cars, we kind of see like how influential the Chinese market is and Chinese market preferences are on the global sort of new vehicle market, even though neither of these cars are actually from Chinese brands. So, which is actually another interesting factor. So, okay, let's get stuck into the three topics for today. So this in this week's episode, we'll be talking about new car sales in Australia during 2025 because we have the VFAX figures come out from December, and that means that a lot of these uh, local automotive media publications have compiled annual sales for the Australian market, so we can have a bit of a chat about those figures now. And then we'll be talking about two other cars, as we just touched on. So, firstly, the Hyundai Elexio, which is a new electric SUV from Hyundai, which will be on sale in Australia very soon. And then, lastly, we'll be talking about the Mazda CX-6e. So, we've talked about the sedan version of this car, which is the Mazda 6e, and in this episode, we'll be talking about the CX-6e, which will be coming to Europe as a guarantee, and I suspect is a very, very strong contender to come into the Australian market as well. So let's get started. So we'll start with Australia's new car sales during 2025. So the market was grew slightly compared to I think 2020. Well, compared to 2015, definitely, but I think it also grew compared to 2024 or was very similar. So we had 1.24 million sales overall in 2025. And just for comparison, in 2015, there were 1.15, or what actually, if you round it correctly, 1.16 million sales. So, I mean, it is reasonably consistent, but it is growing slowly over that time. But I think what's more interesting is the actual composition of that market between 2015 and 2025. So I'm just going to look at just for visibility. I'm going to look at the top 10 marks in 2015 and the top 10 marks in 2025. So Sanvib, I have the Car Expert article open that compares both of these figures. What do you think was the ninth and 10th place in 2015 and in 2025?
Um, I'm not sure. I know Volkswagen slipped out of the top 10. Was it in the top 10 in 2015?
It was.
Yeah.
Do you want to have a guess at what number it was?
Either 9 or 10.
It was actually eighth. So,
Oh, wow. There you
yeah,
go.
yeah.
Honda probably.
Yeah, Honda was actually 10th in
Yeah, yeah,
2015.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, those are the two brands that I know used to be sell a lot more
yeah,
and definitely have slipped down.
yeah,
Obviously, Holden doesn't exist anymore, so we can't
yeah.
really talk about that. The rest should still, off the top of my head, I can't remember what else has slipped that much.
Yeah. Okay. So let's have a look. So so number one in 2015 and 2025, Toyota. Yep. So, and interestingly, in both years, Toyota did more than 200,000 sales. So that's just goes to show how dominant Toyota is. And in 2025, they've actually increased their market share. So they had 239,863 vehicles in 2025 with a market share of 19%. And in 2015, there were almost 18% market share. So they've remained very, very consistent. Uh, but then even number two has switched around. So Mazda in 2015, number two. In 2025, it's Ford, and then Mazda is number three. And then, but what's more interesting is the bottom half of the table. So you have, if I look at position 7 to 10 in 2015, you have Nissan in seventh, Volkswagen in eighth, Subaru in ninth, and Honda in 10th. So which are all still like very household names in 2025. But interestingly, none of them made the top 10 in 2025, which is quite, I think is quite shocking. So if you in 2025, position 7 to 10, you have GWM in seventh, and then BYD in eighth, then Isuzu in nine, which is actually very interesting given Isuzu literally sells two models.
Models, yeah.
Um, and then MG in 10th. So I think that goes to show, like, firstly, how strong some of these Chinese brands have become. Like they've become pretty established in the top 10. Like GWM is doing really well, and GWM includes Haval as well. So with over almost 53,000 sales, so they're doing really well. And BYD has, I mean, they've always been very ambitious since they came into the market, and they've sort of rocketed into the top 10 within the space of, like basically 2022, like 3, 4 years. They're now eighth with 52,000 sales, so 4%, 4.2% market share. So eclipsed Tesla. And then Isuzu coming in ninth with two models, and I think that goes to show goes to show how popular Utes and a lot of those ladder frame SUVs, so models that are based on Utes, really are because Isuzu literally has the D-Max, which is the Ute, and then they have the MUX, which is their SUV that is based on the D-Max platform, so still using that ladder frame sort of chassis, and then MG, which is probably the most, I would say, probably the most consistent and longest serving Chinese brand of note because they have a strong dealership network. They have a sort of full range of models now across EVs, normal combustion engine cars, hybrids. So and they're doing reasonably well, coming in at 10th. Although I think they've been eclipsed by some of their Chinese competitors. So, Sam, do you have any thoughts on, how this market has changed over the last 10 years with these new Chinese brands and so on?
No, it makes sense because the reality is that if you're now interested in buying a new car, um, Toyota and stuff, yes, because they're established, Ford
Mm.
and Mazda. But the reality is, especially those brands that have fallen out, they've now probably become a bit too overpriced. Certainly in Honda's case,
Yeah.
in Volkswagen's case, and places like Subaru, they just feel behind.
Yeah. Yeah.
So really, we've got some established brands who have just aren't offering enough for the money,
Mm.
or are not like even if they're good value for money, they simply are not as modern as what the Chinese are offering. So a lot of people, the vast majority of consumers are not car enthusiasts. They're looking for cars that just look fancy, have the tech that they need, can get from A to B, and
Mm.
offer them good value for money. And let's face it, the Chinese do that best. And on top of that, in EV space,
Yeah.
actually, in some ways, they're more competitive and better. Certainly in
Yeah.
the in for BYD, they're better anyway, straight up, than their more traditional counterparts in the Japanese
Yeah.
and Korean cars. Because
Yeah.
most people would argue that certainly BYD's electric cars are probably more superior to most of their competitors in
Yeah.
the from Japan, Germany,
Yeah.
and Korea. So in EVs, they're better, and with combustion engine cars, they might not be better, but they're certainly better value for money.
Yeah. And I think like I mostly agree with that. I think BYD, especially like their EVs, I think it's fair to say that they're better than any of the Japanese competition. Like, uh, yeah, like you have Toyota trying to make improvements to the BZ4X, and so on. Mazda is sort of now coming into this space a little bit, but interestingly, the model that they do have on sale, the 6E, is like basically a Chinese vehicle. So, um, yeah, and I think it goes to show like people are looking at value for money. Other brands like Subaru, I think Subaru is sort of has typically traded on its reliability and it's its sort of image has always been we're all-wheel drive, we're for the off-road adventure focused lifestyle customer, which is still resonant with Australian customers today. But you look at their lineup and it's just dated. Like they have the Solterra, which is a BZ4X rebrand, and they have some new EVs coming up into the market. But if you look at the rest of their lineup, yeah, the Outback is new, but it's still using the same like fundamental engines and powertrains that the Outback has been using for the last sort of 10, 15 years. They still have that naturally aspirated four-cylinder engine. Then they have the V6. Same with the Forester. The technology is slowly improving, but it's like just catching up. Like they've just debuted a digital instrument cluster in the Forester and the Outback, and like other brands have had this for eons now. Like, and you look at their other models, like they have the Impreza, which like nobody barely like is like not really marketed at all. Then they have the Crosstrek, which is the slightly like an Impreza on stilts, basically. And that's using this decades-old 2-liter naturally aspirated engine, just very dated inside. Very conservative design, and yeah, it's just not that comparative. When you look at what you get from rival brands. Like there's no hybrid powertrains available with those either of those vehicles at all. So which is quite yeah, a little bit disappointing from Subaru's perspective. So and Honda, I think they've sort of they're making a slight comeback, but they've with their agency model change, they've kind of like gone away from being like a volume player. I think their focus is now on producing or selling good quality products. At fair prices with amazing after sales package. So you have cars that are not being sourced from Thailand anymore. Like they're not flogging the Honda Jazz at bargain or the Honda City at bargain basement prices. They're looking at they're positioning themselves as the premium Japanese brand. You can get a Civic hybrid, which is quite expensive for the class, but it is also a very good car. Like I think it got won the Wheels Car of the Year for last year. So, which is fair enough. And then coming out with the CRV, ZRV, HRV, all of these models are hybrid or have hybrid options, and are positioned as sort of premium offerings in their segment, but with a fixed price and a very low servicing costs from the dealer. So I think they're trying to go with that strategy, which is slowly turning things around. Like Honda had a really bad period a few years ago, but they're kind of focusing more on profit, not volume, and we'll see how that turns out over the next sort of coming years. But I don't think, unfortunately, there'll be a significant, they probably won't be in the top 10 or back in the top 10 anytime soon. Um, yeah. Okay. Sandra, do you have anything else to add, or should we
Let's
move on
just
to the next
see
topic?
when we're doing this podcast in 2020, 2036, what the market looks like in
Yeah.
10 years' time.
Well, hopefully we're still doing this podcast in 2036. So let's it'll be
Yeah,
I think it'll be quite the achievement
yeah.
if we do this. Or maybe we'll just have one anniversary episode, mark it in for January 10, 2036. Just do one off.
Yeah, yeah, just to discuss
Yeah.
what car sales look like in 2035, which is so
Yeah.
weird to think because 2030, like it's funny. We look at like when you look at 2015 cars now,
Yeah.
they were like the earliest evolution of what is common now. So you've
Yeah.
like in more expensive cars, you still got screens. A lot of the safety tech that exists now existed back then as well.
Yeah.
Electric cars were still more or less completely in the infancy,
Yeah.
but uh, it's like some of those early ideas in 2015 cars that you'll see have
Yeah.
now just been fully expanded upon. So I'm really curious to see in 2035 where can cars go? Like
Yeah.
the obvious answer, the biggest improvement will be EV range. That's
Yeah.
the very big thing that currently is halting lots of people from purchasing EVs if they can improve EV range, that's a big
Mm.
thing. But as far as interior technology goes, like I mean, like at some point you can't make the whole thing a screen.
Yeah.
Like so so
Yeah.
I am very curious to see what they'll like where innovation will go in 2035.
Yeah.
Like the other big thing will be self-driving cars, right?
Yeah.
So that will be the other big. But then that's more like that will just turn into your personal taxi, if that
Mm.
makes sense. And if you really enjoy driving, then it's kind of like whatever. So yeah, we'll see in 2035 is Toyota still at the top.
Yeah. Yeah. I will be very, I mean, I think for Toyota, like you can see how, like, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, but I think there'll be a lot more change in the next 10 years than there was in the last, so I think there'll be a lot more change between 2026 to 2036 than there was between 2015 to 2025, just because, yeah, you have a lot more battery techno innovation in battery technology. Like 2015, you were th having things like Apple CarPlay and Android Auto were just becoming like commonplace. Like they had been introduced by Apple and Google, and car manufacturers were just adopting them. And I remember like when the uh, Volvo XC90 came out, that was one of the first cars to have Apple CarPlay. And initially, I remember, I think from memory, for the first year, it was like a $2,000 or $3,000 option to have Apple CarPlay. And now it's like, like literally every car, new car on sale except for probably Tesla actually, has Apple CarPlay sta or Android Auto standard, like in some form. Like it might not be wireless, but at minimum you'll get wired CarPlay and wired Android Auto. And if you don't have that, nobody's buying your car unless you're Tesla, which is and even Tesla now. There's rumors saying that Tesla was finally going to adopt CarPlay and Android Auto. So um, yeah, so that will be yeah, interesting to see where things go. Yeah. Okay. All right, now let's move on to our next topic, which is a new electric SUV from Hyundai. So, um, Hyundai's current sort of EV lineup is interesting. It's because, like, they have this access to the same basic technology, and engineering resources and as Kia, but I think in Australia their EV lineup is a little bit different. So Kia is sort of filling out its EV range sort of fairly logically, like in terms of their model lineup. They have the EV 4 now, they have the EV3, they have the EV5, they have the EV6. And Hyundai has its Ioniq lineup. They have the Ioniq 5, Ioniq 6. I think they have the Ioniq 9 now as well. And Kia has the EV9. But they also have these EV models that are sort of a, a little bit not that don't fall under the Ioniq brand. So they have the Kona Electric, which is based on like a what might be called an adapted combustion engine platform or a multi-energy platform. And now they've come out with a new model which sort of sits between, I would say, between the in Hyundai's EV lineup, between the Kona Electric and the Ionic
Yeah.
5. Yeah.
Yep, correct.
So and they're calling it the Elexio, and it's sort of I would say it's probably more of it almost like a direct rival to the Kia EV5. So in the sense that both the Elexio and the EV5 come from China, so they're built not in Korea, they're built in China. Um, the Elexio, however, is only being offered in one high specification, so it's being sold initially at 59,990 drive away, and it has the same motor and battery pack as the EV5 Kia EV5 long range, which is interesting. But it's actually cheap. It's significantly cheaper because the EV5 Air long range is 63,990 drive away. So this is 4 grand cheaper, which is a fair, significant difference in my opinion. So what that means is it has a 160 kilowatt motor, 88.1 kilowatt hour battery, and it's has a rated range of 546 kilometers. So, which is quite not bad for an SUV. It's it's 80 kilometers more for context. It's 80 kilometers more than the Tesla Model Y rear-wheel drive, which is actually the car that my parents have. So yeah, it has a 400 volt platform. So um, it's front wheel drive. It doesn't use that 800 volt eGMP architecture that Hyundai and Kia's more premium EVs use, unfortunately. And in terms of fast charging, Hyundai say it can charge from 10 to 80% in 38 minutes. So that's not that fast, to be honest. Like there's um, definitely electric SUVs in that sort of 50 to $70,000 price range that can charge faster. So I think BYD options from BYD definitely charge a lot faster. I think Teslas can charge significantly faster as well. But yeah, I think what I find most interesting about this is the design actually. Sanbit, what are your initial thoughts on this car? I might pass to
It's
you, but
interesting. They will need a fair bit of a marketing campaign because Hyundai has chucked a lot of EVs at us. We've got the Insta, the obviously the Ioniq 5, the Ioniq 6, the Ioniq
mm,
9. Now this the Kona Electric.
yeah,
And unlike with Tesla, where you've got just a choice of the Model Y and the Model 3,
yeah,
your Hyundai, it's like wow, like you've got so many options
yeah,
that it's like which one do you pick? This one just feels like I don't know if it's 100% necessary. Yes, I get it
yeah,
that the Ioniq 5 is probably a bit too expensive for some people, and the Kona Electric is probably not practical enough for some people. So yes,
yeah,
having this mid-range option is good. I will say that the exterior is fine. It's not,
yeah,
it's like, there's not really much to say. It's like
yeah,
fine.
yeah,
It's not horrible. It's not amazing. It's just fine. Like
yeah,
Kia's design language, apart from their very latest thing, is
yeah,
a lot better for the EVs.
yeah,
Hyundai's is fine. I mean, the Ioniq 5, I think, is still a pretty good looking car.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's fine. The interior is more interesting
yeah,
because it I would just love to sit in one just to see how it practically works.
yeah,
It feels like, okay, the Tesla where the essential information is right next to the, but it feels like they should have, and also obviously it's got a HUD
yeah,
of some description, so
yeah,
that will also be help. But, and I mean, I guess I can sort of see how it practically probably would be fine. Like it might be an adjustment, but similar to a Tesla, you'd probably get used to it.
yeah,
Like, but it is curious. Um, like I said, it's just fine. Like,
yeah,
it's it like a good range, obviously. I,
yeah,
I think if it was priced more at the mid 50s,
yeah,
54,990, then it would be like a pretty good deal. I don't know if
yeah,
basically 60K drive away. At
yeah,
that point, a lot of people will be just like, just get a Tesla,
yeah,
really. Yeah, like yes, you and apparently it's got the 27-inch panoramic display, heated ventilated seats,
yeah.
all the safety tech that you need, local handling, ride and tune,
I
good
think that's
range.
important actually that they've done a local ride handling tune because I think not every, like they try to do it for every Hyundai and Kia, but not all of them get it. So yeah, so I think,
Like it's fine, but I
yeah.
don't see how this will like I'd be curious to see how many people buy this because
Mm,
like it's not that much more of a step up to an Ionic 5, and with an Ionic 5, you're getting a much better looking car, much more
yeah,
distinct looking car. I like if I was I just pay more than get an Ionic 5. Like I'm
yeah,
not sure how much a base Ionic 5 is. It's about 70 something, I think, now with the latest
yeah,
one.
yeah.
Uh
But Hyundai's been offering like really good deals on the Ioniq 5. Like I think they've been wanting to like the Ioniq 5 has not been selling that well,
That
and they've
great.
been
Yeah, yeah,
offering
yeah.
like a lot of discounts on like even like MY. I think at one point they even had like last year they had like MY 24 stock that they were trying to get rid of, which is,
Yeah.
yeah, and same for the Ionic 6. I think Ionic 6 they even had MY 23 stock that they were trying to get
Ioniq
rid of.
5 is 71,990 for a brand new model. That's
Yeah,
the base. So yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I
okay.
mean, at some I'd be like,
That's
and as you said, or get a slightly used Ioniq 5,
yeah,
probably for 60K. You'd probably get a slightly used Ioniq 5
yeah,
for about 60K. I'd
yeah,
just do that because
yeah,
you're getting actually a good looking car.
yeah,
I'd almost just get that. Like,
yeah, yeah. I think yeah, the interior design is very like, and I think we'll touch on this more in the next car that we talk about as well. But you can tell it's designed for the Chinese market because, and we've said this a few times on this podcast, but like the Chinese market has very distinct preferences, and they're
actually,
very
sorry to interrupt. Speaking of, you mentioned this on
yeah,
Hyundai's website. A
yeah.
2023 Ioniq 6 is exactly the same price,
Okay,
59,990
there you
brand new.
go.
Yeah, exactly the same price.
Yeah, and they're still
2020.
selling to. Are they selling it like brand new as a
They're
like
selling it
a
brand new because this must be 2020. This is on
yeah,
the Hyundai website as a brand new car.
yeah,
So yes, these are brand new unsold 2023
yeah,
Hyundai Ioniq
yeah,
6s, which are still they haven't been able to move, I assume, for
yeah,
59,990. I
yeah,
don't know. I mean, I'd probably get an Elexio over the Ioniq 6 at
yeah.
59,990. Uh Simply because I mean, maybe I'd
It
have to
depends
see
on
the
whether
car.
you want an SUV or not, though. Like, if I didn't have to have an SUV, I'd get the Ioniq 6, personally. It's more distinctive, in my opinion. But,
That is true. It's more distinctive, yes, that is true.
yeah,
But yeah, I need to look at the range and how the interior
yeah,
compares and stuff like that.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I think that the fact that Hyundai still has like what are now, almost like 3-year-old cars,
Yeah.
just collecting collecting dust that they're trying to essentially flog.
That's
It's just
crazy though.
yeah.
The when it was brand new, it was 88,000.
Yeah. So there you
So
go. So they've lost like what, like they've lost like almost like what, 60 to
yeah,
almost $30,000 in 3 years' time. And this is like without having being driven at all. So
yeah,
just
yeah. That
just
is crazy. Yeah,
yeah.
like the interior, it's like it's a bit better in the sense it's got buttons and slightly a mix of Hyundai's old
Yeah.
tech and new tech.
Yeah.
So,
And
whereas
the other thing is the Ioniq 5 and 6 use the 800-volt architecture as well. So they have like proper DC fast charging and all of
yeah,
those benefits. And Ioniq 6, because it's a sedan, it's very aerodynamic. It will have better range than this. That I'm pretty comfortable uh, putting a bet on. But
yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, no,
so
that's a good one. That's a, like, would you buy a 2023 Ioniq 6 for 59,990
yeah,
brand new or 2026 Hyundai
yeah.
Elexio? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd go for the Ioniq 6 personally. Like this looks very like average. Like the Elexia, I have to agree with you, Sam. Like the exterior design is just like, it's a bit meh. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, it's not exciting. It's not ugly. I mean, it's not super ugly per se, but it's not distinctive either. And I think the interior, yeah, it goes to show how like the global car industry is being shaped by Chinese market preferences because we know Chinese market is very keen on those huge displays because, they have a lot of traffic on the Chinese roads and they want to, sit inside the cars and play around with these huge touch screens, which is fine, like, but not everybody wants that. And it's clear that this is a car that was designed for the Chinese market because you have this gigantic 27-inch display that is one big display. So it's not like it's not split up between two displays and then joined under one piece of glass. It's literally one big display that is a one side is essentially for the front passenger and then there's like a middle component as well, but it's just one big display. And then in front of the passenger, all you have is this tiny sort of pop-up head-up display, which is like reminds me a bit actually of the new iX3 Neue Classes design, but like much less sophisticated. Like it's much smaller. It's almost like a cross between what you get in Volkswagen's ID lineup, like the
Yep.
ID3, ID4, and their MEB sort of lineup and the um, a new Neue Klasse iX3 in terms of like it's positioned very close to the base of the windscreen. And you know, I think it's fine, but it's nothing special. Like I'm not even sure, given how slim that display is, whether it would even be able to display like navigation instructions and so on. But
ID4 is currently also on offer for 62,990.
oh, okay,
So
well there you
3K
go.
more. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of options at this sort of $60,000 mark. And yeah, I'm not sure whether this would be the best choice, to be honest. Like it's just fine. Like from the pictures, I don't even think like this comes with like a panoramic sunroof or anything. It's just a fixed metal roof. You know, which is a lot of EVs these days, EV SUVs are coming with these panoramic glass roofs. So to not have that, yeah, I'm having a look at the list of specifications. It's just a six speaker audio system. They're pretty basic. Yeah, there's no sunroof at all. There's not even forget even a panoramic glass roof. There's no sunroof at all. That's actually quite disappointing. I think that's a big miss. I think people will be like a lot of customers want like those having those glass roofs. So not to not have that, yeah, that's actually pretty disappointing. Um, yeah, yeah, I'm just having a look at this. Yeah, the rest of the specifications are fine, but nothing more than fine. So yeah, I think I'm interested to see how much Hyundai markets this car, but it seems like a little bit of a mediocre effort, if I'm being perfectly honest. So, yeah. Sam, have any final thoughts?
I know, just yeah, curious to see what the ad campaign for this looks like
Yeah.
and how the sales go for the remainder of the year.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I think we might move on to our final topic, which is another interesting one. So 2026 Mazda CX-6e, which actually will be a direct competitor to the Elexio if it comes on sale in Australia, which I assume I would be, if I was a betting man, I would assume Mazda Australia will be waving their hands very strongly for this car. If it's available in right-hand drive, I think they'll be putting their hand up for this car, especially given that we're getting this 6E. There's no reason why we wouldn't get the CX-6E either. So um, this is another. Um, it is a Mazda in the sense that it has the Mazda styling. It's badged as a Mazda. It has that Kodo design. But it is again a joint effort with their Mazda's Chinese joint venture partner, Chang'an. So it's basically a rebranded Chinese vehicle with Mazda changing the styling and putting a Mazda the exterior styling and putting a Mazda badge on it. So look, it has a 70, we don't know the Australian specifications yet, but in Europe, it will have a 78 kilowatt hour battery. It has a rear mounted electric motor, so it's rear wheel drive, unlike the Elexio actually, which is front wheel drive. In terms of the WLTP range, around 500 or just under 500 kilometers, so 484 kilometers, which is it's a little bit low actually. I would say it could be. I mean, it's still better than the entry level Tesla Model Y, but um, it could be a bit higher. Like a lot of these new entrants are getting 500 kilometers plus. So yeah, it's and 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in between 7.7 to 7.9 seconds. So it's not a performance, yeah, not positioned as a performance SUV by any means. That's very, very average acceleration figures these days. Does have DC fast charging, which is 195 kilowatts. So I think that's faster than the Alexio. And again, Sam, so what are your initial thoughts on this car in terms of the exterior and interior design?
I think it'll be priced a fair bit above the Elexio, surely in the 60s. I can't imagine this starting in the
Let's
50s.
see. Yeah, I'm interested because this is going to be coming from China as well. So that gives us benefit. And I think that gives Mazda pricing benefits. And how much is the sedan? Because the 6e, we have the pricing for the sedan version now. So let me just Google Mazda 6e pricing. It will be under $55,000.
I think
Yeah,
this will
existing.
be starting in the 60s, definitely. I mean, if it's launching in the UK in late this year, we won't see it till next year at the earliest.
Yeah.
So we won't see it for quite a while. But it does go to show that Mazda is leveraging their partnership with Deepal.
Chang'an. Is it
Base,
Chang'an or Deepal? Or Deepal? Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah. Basically, you're trying to be like, okay, we'll put our own Mazda-ish spin on it, but
mm,
not have to too much worry too much about the actual development and stuff. From the front, it kind of looks like a Mazda, not really as much from the rear, but yeah, yeah. Otherwise, as we said, it looks almost identical to the Alexio. This huge, I think this one has a
yeah.
slightly bigger screen, but
Especially in the interior. Yeah,
yeah, broadly speaking, all these cars look exactly the same now.
yeah,
Like you've just got the wheel, a HUD, and a massive
yeah,
display, panoramic display next to it
yeah,
with all the functions. So
yeah,
I mean, what we said for the Lexi almost goes for this. Like,
yeah.
there's so little
Exactly.
to say about it. The
Yeah,
only problem is that Alexio we know is coming on sale very soon, whereas this, like I said, we have to wait for a year at the
yeah,
very earliest for it to come to Australia.
yeah,
But otherwise, there's not really much to say. It's like, and really, these aren't Mazdas in the traditional sense. So it's
yeah.
almost like you can't talk about them in the Mazda sense, like you can with
Yes. Yeah,
CX-60 and stuff. You're effectively talking about a Chinese car with the Mazda
yeah,
logo at the front. So
yeah.
yeah, other than that, there isn't much to say. It just shows that Mazda is continuing to strengthen their partnership. Um,
Mm,
with this Chinese company and basically being like, okay, we don't necessarily have the money to develop our own custom electric platform. Let's leverage our partnership with the Chinese brand who's already got an existing technology base and just put some Mazda styling on it and be able to, as you said, sell it for a lot cheaper because
yeah,
obviously it's Chinese fundamentally.
yeah.
And let's see how many sales we can get.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I agree with all of that. I mean, the exterior design, yeah, they've tried to take some of the Kodo design language, like they have that same front end, like they have the light bar that does that same sort of U shape that, Mazda's current range does with the grille. It looks better on the outside than the Alexia, in my opinion. The interior is almost like almost identical to the Elexio. Like uh, the Elexio it still has a physical instrument cluster, but just a very, very tiny one. I think the CX-6e doesn't have a physical driver's instrument cluster at all. It's literally just a head-up display, which is, I mean, better than the Tesla approach, I suppose, but yeah, not great. Yeah, and again, I think you can tell, like Mazda, and I think I made the same comment when I was talking about the 6e. Like, they're small, relatively in the stable of Japanese car companies. They're a small brand. They're much smaller than the big three of Toyota, Honda, and Nissan when you look at these brands from a global perspective, and that means they don't have the same engineering resources standard to your point as well. That Toyota does, that Honda does, that Nissan does. So what that means is that they still have to meet these globally tightening emissions regulations. So what's the option? Okay, let's leverage our existing partnerships and in the background, like yes, Mazda in particular has been focusing a lot on all of these uh, technologies to optimize the combustion engine, like that Skyactiv X, which I think it's fair to say failed. Was expensive for not much fuel economy benefit. They have Skyactiv Z now coming up, which is I think they're going to be uh, coming up with an in-house hybrid powertrain as well. And I think they are developing their own bespoke EV architecture. But in the meantime, they have to still meet these tightening emissions regulations. And the only way for them to do that is to have these what I call compliance cars that leverage the Chinese partnership, are designed for the Chinese market, but are being sold globally because they have to meet the emissions regulations. And you can see that in the again in the interior design that you have these huge screens, which is a you look at the interior of this compared to the interior of like a CX-5, CX-60, CX-70, 80, 90. They are completely different philosophies, and those uh, rear-wheel drive combustion engine Mazda models they're the genuine Mazdas because they have that physical controls, they have the driver facing infotainment instrument cluster and infotainment display, and Mazda has always been a very driver traditionally positioned itself as a very driver focused brand. Like their cars traditionally have very sporty handling, like even MX-5 is like the flag bearer, but then you have Mazda 3 and all of the CX-5 positioned as like a sporty offering in their compared to their rivals. And yeah, and these cars just aren't that. You can't that's just the point that you have to make. So I watched the Autogefühl video of this car, and they said the interior is very luxurious in terms of the build quality, which is good. Soft touch surfaces everywhere, and it's being positioned as a more luxurious option, which is very nice. Similar to the 6e, where very nice interior quality. They have these very cool purple seats. So, and this one, compared to the Elexio, at least has a panoramic glass roof, which is nice. So it's more luxurious. But yeah, it's not I wouldn't call it a traditional Mazda, unfortunately. Yeah. Okay. Sammy, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, there's not much more to say with
Yeah.
this car. You're right. I think you've covered it all.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Look, I think we might end it there for this week's episode of the Hook Turn podcast. So thank you again for listening. We're wishing our audience a very happy new year. And we're happy to be continuing this into 2026. And yeah, we're looking forward to talking to you guys next week. And yeah, remember to like, subscribe on Spotify, Podcasts, and whatever podcasting platform that you listen to. So cool. Thank
Yes.
you. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.